Hey guys, it's Matt Hanham here and welcome to the Amplify Your Business podcast. Welcome to the show guys, Matt Hanham here and I'm here today with a very special guest, Carmen Braidwood.
G'day Matt.
Welcome.
This is nice. I like this radio studio in the back of your office setup. This is actually a long way towards being better than most of the radio studios I've ever worked in, which is great.
I'm nodding and I'll take that compliment and I don't believe you, but I will take the compliment. Thank you.
Oh, it's a nice setup. I'm impressed.
Cool. Thanks very much. So, yeah, look, welcome to the show. I'm pretty excited. A mutual friend of ours said, look, you should definitely have a chat with Carmen and get her on the show. But for those of us that maybe know you a little bit or maybe don't know you at all, I thought I'll throw it over to you to say, who are you, Carmen, and what do you do?
Gee, that's a hard question to answer these days. You know that I'm wrestling with that question. Look, up until about 6 months ago, I was hosting an FM radio breakfast show here in Perth, and I've worked in commercial radio in various roles, always in that breakfast shift for the last 15 years.
So that's the sort of 4 a.m. start. Let's get in early.
Yeah, the alarm goes off at 3:30 and then I ignore it till about 4:45 and then go to work. It's not quite that bad, but close.
Doing the teeth in the car on the way there type thing?
If they get done. Yeah. No, it is hard on your life. So I did that for about 15 years. And recently the show came to an end with ARN locally and I've been out doing my own thing and working on answering the question of who I am and what I can bring to this new digital age of media, digital age of marketing and a digital age of doing business.
You know what? It is a tough question to ask someone. Actually, I don't mind doing that bit because it's like rather than me trying to introduce the way I see someone.
Yeah,
right?
I guess so.
It's really hard. I mean, obviously you're going through a transformation, a transition type phase, and I think it does take a long time to start to work out at the dinner party. In inverted commas. What do you say when someone asks you that very basic question, like what do you do?
Yeah.
Because it's easy when you've got a more traditionally branded line, like. Obviously for at least the last several years, I'm on this show or, I do this, I dabble in a bit of this. But as soon as you move into that somewhat murky water of sort of consulting privately and helping these people and doing this and doing that, people just start going, huh?
Yeah, what is that? And the list goes on. I almost feel like, and I do have a phone list, there's a list of things I'm actually doing now. I don't know, I can't believe I make a lot of lists in my iPhone. But I actually do have a list because I like to use it to A, keep me on task, but B, give me something to say when people say, what are you doing now? Well, let me check my list. I wish I'd brought it.
No, you don't have your phone. You left your phone.
I'm a professional. I didn't bring my phone into the radio studio.
What's the short list? I mean, what are you excited about now?
The things I'm excited about now is bringing the skill set that comes from a traditional broadcast space into the digital realm. And it's actually only through recent conversation with you that I even was able to articulate that probably that well. I think that there's so many people making awesome content like yourself and many, many people around the world who are doing the same thing. But there's an opportunity there to bring some flair that comes from traditional media that isn't necessarily being listened to in the traditional space, that we can actually say, well, hey, let's start doing that in your digital space as well.
It's really cool. Now, as I said, we had a chat recently and I was really excited by the chat too because it really opened my eyes up to where a lot of people, where the mindset's at from the more traditional media space. And I was like, wow, there's just so much opportunity to sort of merge the two together and, just open up the thinking because there's so much, obviously there's a depth of skill down the traditional line, which isn't necessarily being sort of injected into the new platforms and the digital realm, anywhere near as well as it could be. So
no,
it's
not
quite
yet.
Exciting.
I think there's an awareness, and I think that everybody knows that digital is the future of the broadcast media, and certainly the audible broadcast media. But I think that people are holding back, just waiting until it's worth their while monetarily to go into that space. So it's the people like yourselves who are taking the opportunity to grow and develop outside of the traditional broadcast media who will take that commercial opportunity when the time comes.
Yeah. No, I'm cool. I'm looking forward to digging into that a little bit, but I might just take a little step back because, you haven't spent that much time on radio, so I probably need to ask you a personal question just to warm you up a little bit, and get you moving, because you're not very experienced in all of this. But
I share lots of that stuff over the years.
Yeah, no, exactly. So what's something, I'd be really keen to hear something. I mean, a lot of people have shared their breakfast with you, for a couple of years at least, more recently. And what's something that the general population or people might not know about you that you might find, or something that's happened since your movement away from, I guess, the more traditional space that you've discovered about yourself?
Yeah, that's there's not a lot left. I've talked about everything that ever happened to me. My job literally for the best part of 7 years was go do something so that I can talk about it tomorrow on the radio.
Yeah.
That was pretty much my life. So to drill it down...
It's all right.
Something
maybe my
don't
listeners
know
could
yet.
be all over the place.
And they won't have heard stuff on the show anyway.
That's right.
I mean, my first taste of professional work as a presenter or somebody who speaks in front of a crowd, people are often interested to hear, was not on radio, and it was before I'd even been trained in radio. It was as a murder mystery party host.
I've been to one of those parties.
Yeah, do you recall? And back when I did them, they'd come not in a box, but with a person who brought the box, and I turned up and I was in character, doing a terrible accent half the time, and that was where I learnt that I wasn't going to make my money out of acting. And that's what I soon realised I need to go off and become a broadcaster. And it just made sense because it had this nice creative side to it, as well as something that was a bit more kind of focused and had greater earning capacity too. Yeah.
So was that it? Was that a uni gig type thing, or was that a post-uni thing that you were sort of struggling to get your feet into
I guess uni, and it crossed over into even when I was starting out in radio. It was just a great thing to do on the weekends, and instead of like drinking like other people in their early 20s did.
Well, I guess everyone around you was drinking at the parties, and
went to plenty of parties. Yeah, I'm sort of mildly sad that the dorky first job is the only thing I can think of that people don't know about me already. I really want a dog, but don't have one.
You can have my dog.
What sort of dog is it?
He's a beagle.
Oh, this is a good thing. I would take that dog. I think they're great. Airport dogs, right?
Yeah, but he's a bit bigger. He's a little overweight. He's a little old now. His eyes are struggling a little bit. But no, I wouldn't actually give him away. But no. He can be very painful, as beagles can.
They're pretty full on, aren't they?
They can.
This is what stops us. We have it. My stepson now is 16 or nearly 16.
Right.
We feel like we're done with people and things that are going to trash our home. We're starting to think maybe we don't need a dog.
I'd probably agree with that. Or just stick with a small one, maybe.
Yeah, but they get pretty small, don't they? Chihuahuas? Maybe I could go something like that. Or the pug. I've heard the thing about having a pug, because they're super trendy at the minute. The problem is that people stop you everywhere you go. And I have done that. I've seen people with pugs in the street and to my husband, oh my God, we have to get a dog like this. We just ignore this human who is walking this pug, and it's all about this dog. And I especially like it when I see a clean dog.
Yeah.
You can smell the clean. I don't know if your beagle's clean, but when this dog is clean.
We try and keep him clean.
I'm getting a dog. We're going to have one like this. But I know that just like my kitchen, my bathroom, I'm going to struggle to keep it as clean as I would like it all the time.
Yeah, well, there's a lady that comes and washes our dog, and Jack's not too impressed when he sees her turn up, typically. And one of his missions thereafter, after she's left, is to see how dirty he can get as quickly as possible.
That'd be right.
So,
this would frustrate me. and then if you had a dog that everyone wants right now, you're going to get stopped by people who want to take selfies with the dog and put it on their Instagram. Yep. Mind you, if my dog was a gorgeous dog, chances are it would surpass my own Instagram stats within days.
Well, pets and children can do that.
They work, don't they? Maybe that's sort of been missing. Okay, we'll talk about that. I might have to go home and harass Husbo even further.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can find a friend that's going on a 6-month holiday or something, and just do the try before you buy scenario.
Yeah, we thought about the same thing with kids actually, timeshare children. Then I realised that my husband's been married before and has a child. We technically already do have a timeshare child, so that was a tasteless joke, and we decided not to keep making that one. Sorry to bring it to your podcast.
So
one for the edit. it. All right.
No, it's all good. We don't edit much here, so
great.
whatever you say is, unless it's horrific, it's probably staying in because, as we've talked about this, one of the things that I really value in terms of podcasting and where it does, I guess, differ from some traditional media is that I think it's just a great opportunity to hear the full conversation.
That's true.
And editing things out, and usually it's not like you're editing something bad out. It's just like, look, it's the conversation. Just hear the full conversation, just like you were in the room.
Yes,
so.
There's never any time in the background I've had, and I'm even sitting here going, oh, should I keep talking? I feel like I'm talking too long. This is getting boring. Let's keep it interesting. So sorry, I'm editing on the fly in my head.
Look, and to be honest, the real reason for that is it's a lot easier if I don't have to cut anything up.
Well, I read something today by James Cridland, who's a radio commentator. Not a commentator in the sporting sense. He comments on the industry of radio. Yep. And he claimed that live radio is messy radio. So here's something you can start to think about. I'm not going to critique your podcast too much, but, if other podcast makers and people who are creating content for their business are listening, when you think about it, just going live and having a chat, whilst it's the most enjoyable form of broadcast...
Oh, it's lazy.
It's technically lazy because you can't be bothered doing the technical things that it's going to take to tighten that up. Things like record an amazing intro to replace the kind of boring one that you might have done. I'm not saying you did that at the top of this one.
Okay.
But,
Mine's quite boring.
You can trim your interview so that the person you're interviewing just goes, hey, at the top, and then you re-record this amazing, well-researched and thought-out piece at the top that refers to something coming up later in your show, for instance, and using this great technique called hooking and teasing that we drive deep into the heart of all radio broadcast. And television does a great job of it too. Yeah. Right now you're hearing after the Commonwealth Games, we'll finally see those girls have that bitch fight in Married at First Sight, MKR. Yeah. Sorry, brand loyalties all over the place there. So that technique of keeping people with us and to hear something that might be valuable to them is something you can create by, you can do it live, but with a little more planning, a little more time and a little less lazy, you could go and do it in post-production and create something great.
Well, on the podcasting front, to line in with that, I've heard people commenting that, look, interview-based, one-to-one, just like we're doing, and just like my show is a very lazy form of podcasting. And it is, in a lot of ways, because you can, but like anything, right, it depends what you put into it.
Yes.
So it could be simple. I could have 5 questions. I mean, there is questions I repeat because I actually like to, my view on it is I like to have those repetitive questions to see what different guests, answer.
Compare and contrast.
And
however, build other content down the track one day.
It's kind of lazier than having to sit there by yourself and create and do that all. But, I guess the other flip side of it is the authenticity. And one of the big things that, I push, and I know you agree with, we had a great chat on it, is trying to bring out some authenticity. And I think the further you delve into those, I'm all for the hook and I'm all for a few things a week, but you can lose the authenticity at some point. And
definitely.
It's like, I don't know where there is a fine line somewhere, but sometimes I listen to a podcast and it just feels raw. It's probably too long. It's probably a bit lazy, but I enjoyed it more than the one that was cut down a little bit. I really don't like halfway hearing it cut into an ad.
I'm going to clip all of this and send it to James Cridland and say, see, look, I think there's space, and I think that, and remember I was just quoting what James says about that being lazy, because I think that the best thing is live in anything that I've done in the past. So the thrill of getting it right and being able to just go with what might happen. And when that happens, something unexpected comes out. The only thing you have left to rely on then is the chemistry between you and your co-host, or your own ability to just think your way out of something, or your ability to work with that person that you might be interviewing on the phone or in the studio to create something entertaining.
That's true. I mean, look, we're not live, right? I mean, that's the thing.
No,
we're not at all. Technically, we can do anything with this thereafter. I mean, usually we will plop up and put some, a couple of live feeds on. We haven't done anything today, but we're not live. So it's like we can change anything. Whereas your situation in the morning, it's just on those spending years for a couple of hours every day, in a live situation where many thousand people are listening to you. That's there's some pressure to that, I'm sure, and you don't want to get caught. And I'm sure it's like the worst nightmare. that you're like, I'm going to be sitting there and have nothing to say.
Nothing to say. No, very, very lucky that most people employed in radio can drivel when need be. And look, in a business setting, like as quickly as possible, you can create content. And that's, I think, what's so exciting that is being adopted by the digital media, and that traditional, they're adopting, they're getting into it, they're starting to do more of it, but there's room to do so much more. It's just a resources thing at this stage.
And an ROI thing, like you say, like I think it's people are waiting to see more return from it. I believe it's there, but I understand why a lot of people can't see it, or they're not, they're over-resourcing, or they feel they need to put a very high level of resource into something to achieve it. I mean, like you've walked in and said, look, I'm really happy. You really think this setup's great.
It's a great setup.
There's really not more than I've overdone it, but there's no more than a couple of $1,000 here worth of stuff that we're really playing with. It could be easily a lot less to produce something, but also it could be a lot more. But it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily need to have a huge. I mean, there's time behind it, and that's certainly worth more than just the equipment. But it doesn't have to be as out of control as I think a lot of people see in their minds. But look, cast me back. So you've gone through Murder Mystery Nights. Yeah,
I did that.
You started in radio. Was radio that was the plan, or you wanted to go more film? I mean, film and TV.
No,
you didn't mind.
I always went, and I guess the course I did dictated what I ended up doing. Yeah. I finished my arts degree. I was close to finishing my arts degree, and I started taking a radio broadcast course. Okay. It was at an institution in Leederville called the Academy of Radio. It doesn't exist anymore, but it probably equates to now a TAFE course. I'm lecturing at TAFE actually at the minute, and the radio students there do a 2-year course. I did a 6-month kind of crash course, very industry focused, and I felt, and my feedback to my university at the time was that I learnt more in that 6 months than I did during my entire 3-year arts degree in English and history. And look, obviously I learned a lot of great theoretical stuff, but I was a very practically focused person, and I really wanted to just get out there and do things, and radio really allowed me to do that. Okay. So that course, skilled me up enough to get my first gig. And
so that was enough to get into your first gig?
Yeah.
Like having done that course, that's enough to sort of get the job at that point in time?
Yeah, it was.
Because I assume it would be quite, particularly right now, I feel like it would be quite competitive to try and get in.
And it was even back then. Yep. And I think if you managed to get the jobs, you go, I wasn't all that competitive. I think it was one part relationships, one part skill. Yeah. You needed to be in a radio station sometimes doing some work experience, that kind of age-old thing. So I did work experience up at 6PR in East Perth, and then I ended up doing some casual weekend announcing. So I do some afternoons, here comes this song, got another song coming up later. This is the radio station, it's 4:10. That sort of stuff. I did that out in Mandurah on the weekends while I finished my degree. And so, it wasn't that hard to get that job and then take it from there.
But you still have to do something sort of over and above. Do you know what I mean? And I guess we made some content earlier today, and it was literally about saying, look, your degree is not enough. You need to start a blog or a vlog or do something, or create some content and send it in, or send in a pile of cupcakes with your resume, or just do something to stand out, right? And you've just said that there. That look, you found that it was competitive, but it was possible. But you had to go and do a little bit more.
You did
find a way to build some relationships and get in around the fringe and be there when an opportunity is available, right?
That's right. And the new kids coming through now are already hosting their own shows. Yeah. They're already doing it, whereas I didn't have as many opportunities to do that other than, say, community radio. Yep. Again, you had to get a spot in community radio. So instead I went through just learning on the job. And you do a lot of work for free. Yeah. And I guess if I was doing it again, which I kind of am, I think that
you are.
For the right opportunity, I'm looking to get back in. Yeah. So I am creating all my own content again. Yeah. And I would have done it the same way then if it had existed. Yeah. I'm writing articles for 9 Honey and sending them in, and I'm writing my own blog content and I'm putting that up. I'm working on getting some video content. I just need to just do it, as you say, get it out there. Of course, you've got to do something that demonstrates you can do it, and channel some of your own independent thought into that too.
So with the transition, and you've raised a couple of points there, I thought it might be an interesting question. So how have you found the flip to, because a lot of people come from a more structured, position and background. So you're in this structured work media environment. It's it has been, it operates the way it has for many decades, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been through innovation, but largely it would still operate on the same basis. And then you jump into this no man's land in terms of hours, time, how you approach yourself, how you project manage, how you do everything. And this is what anyone who jumps into a business or starts freelancing or whatever they choose to do, that's where we find ourselves in this crazy catch-22 often, where we want to almost work less hours, but we end up working this crazy overtime hours. We don't know when to switch the tap on or off, what to do. How have you found the transition from the, I guess, external motivation to the internal motivation that's required to run your own shop?
I think two things come to mind. I've always been quite internally motivated anyway.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, do you get that vibe? Yeah. So, I do have matching drink bottle and dress today.
We will get that in the shot, don't worry. It's an incredible...
That might appear that way.
Would I fair to say it's like a bright lime colour? Yes. And that your water bottle is perfectly matched to the dress today. So
it is an accident. I wasn't internally motivated to do that. However, back in radio and, every job I've ever had, because it's so competitive and because that you're just another person who can do the same job, I was always, making sure I was prepared and ready for the next job. Yeah. And so back then it was cutting demos and it was maintaining relationships with the right program directors and people around the country who could help you. And I guess, more recently it was, adopting the digital content that I could. Yeah. Within the structures of my existing contract and my commitments to that show. It was hard because in some ways my personal brand differed on that show to what it does in real life. And there are some things there that people might not know about me, but maybe I'm not quite ready to share yet, So there's plenty of stuff.
Is that a hook?
That's a hook to the future. That's well in the future. Some, there are plenty of things that happened to me, particularly in the last 2 years of my work at 96 FM that I couldn't talk about because the format didn't allow for it, and I couldn't write content about them again because we didn't want to associate those things with me at that time. So now that I'm me on my own and I'm potentially looking at working with other media organisations or just being on my own and dipping into other media from time to time, and I'm finding you can string enough of that together to do this, I am having to motivate internally, get that content out when I feel it's ready. And I can't even remember what the other thing was that comes to mind. The hours. And I did think I would work less. I don't.
No.
No. I think I used to nap in the middle of the day doing my old job.
Because you could, right? I guess the format sort of said, hey, you're going to get up early, then you can have a mid-afternoon nap.
So structured. And routine was paramount. I'd say I'm trying to create my own routines, but I'm enjoying staying up late. Gee, late is good. And when I say late, I mean 11:30 p.m. That's late for me. I haven't seen that late for a while, actually. To be honest, it's more like sort of 9:30. Yeah. But I'm also enjoying being able to say, I will come and do that. Hearing some really interesting opportunities. Things like working with the TAFE students. I'm going to be working with some high school students later this year to talk about media and how they see it these days. At their age, my friends turned to me in the classroom and said, oh, you should be a newsreader. And that's what I really wanted to do at that time because I saw them around me. But
you should be a YouTuber.
That's right. It is. you should be so ridiculous. A totally different conversation now. Yeah. So to go to those guys later in the year and hear what they see media being and start to do some innovation from without the industry, from the outside of the industry, I should say, and see what we can do with it one day in a commercial setting. That's exciting. It's almost like doing my PhD without having to go back to boring university.
Obviously not being paid by any universities
Not
right now
at
at
this
present.
stage. I would love to at some point, sure. God. No, look, uni just didn't suit me at the time, but I'm glad I have that degree.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is it's just that it's got to be married with some actual activity somewhere, right? So, like the theory is good, and like again, I was talking about it this morning. A lot of applicants and that they're looking for work have got the degree. Okay. Great, tick. I know you've learnt some theory, you've had 3 or 4 years, there's been some practice in there, but you need to really match that with the actual real world activity and just practice and grinding on the craft, and because without it, and that's where it falls down. But both sides fall down, right?
They do, you must have both. And look, I think that I still sometimes sound like that annoyed and frustrated 19, 20-year-old who was at UWA arguing with her lecturers that Peter Weir didn't put that actor in the movie, or they had to put that actor in the movie because that was the only one available. Like I always saw the practical side of it.
Yeah.
I see the art, and the art is wonderful, but the artist's reality is that your art is bound by so many constructs. I've got a friend
particularly commercial.
Yes, and even like a friend is a visual artist, and and sure he has tons of things that he'd like to make, but until those pieces are commissioned, dude's got to eat food. So we must view all art. Getting really wanky now, aren't I? But we must view all art, including what we're doing here and in the digital. All art, all creative space is confined to some extent by commercial realities.
Yeah, exactly. And it really isn't like the art versus science. Like, it really is a versus, because we want to put as much possible resource into the art side, not actually knowing whether it's commercial, whether it's just a viable project, like whatever it looks like. But we all, we love the idea of really going all in on the art. But without the science, the commercial backing behind whatever it is we're doing, we just we struggle. You're not going to be able to do it again. Like you don't have a blockbuster Star Wars series of movies without having the commercial element that falls behind it.
Yeah,
and,
Disney have to buy Lucasfilm. That's just the way it is.
That's it.
Sorry,
for an
guys.
awful lot of money. Yeah, that's right. So, if you were talking to someone that's still sort of in a more traditional media job, and you had to just sort of enlighten them on, I guess, what you've learnt in this transition phase, and that they've had to, move into a slightly new realm of innovation in a way. And I'm not saying that traditional media hasn't been through any innovation.
No,
they
it's
certainly
definitely
have.
innovating. Look, I'm reskilling as a radio producer, and my feedback immediately is they do things so much differently and so much better than 10 years ago. So I am learning that.
Yeah.
But you're right.
But what would you say to them? What would you say to someone who? Because I'm just going to put it out. I guess that there's a lot of people that are probably sitting in there frustrated, probably overworked, because most traditional style businesses are sitting in that type of space because they have a different kind of mentality to the more new age type of business.
We're waiting for the paradigm to shift.
Yeah. So what would you say to
change.
them, having now sort of jumped ship and you're off doing something a little bit different? You've got some more flexibility, but obviously that comes with its own, pluses and minuses. What would you say to the person that's having a glass of wine with you at the end of the day saying, I can't believe I'm still doing this?
I would say enjoy it while you've got it. It won't last forever.
Yeah.
It won't be the end of the world when it comes to an end. And to correct, I didn't jump ship. I was invited off at the ship, with a boot in my bum. But look, at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world when you come out of it, and prepare yourself.
Yeah.
And waiting until it's finished is not the time to prepare. I really thoroughly believe that you should stay aware of what's going on around you in the fringes of your industry. You may feel like it's irrelevant and it's never going to take off, or it won't take off in my career lifetime. Why not just be ready? Have your content, have your online. If you want to do work on your personal brand, do work on your personal brand. Have something there that is your parachute clause, because I'm delighted to report that I've been able to land and get by. Yeah, the house is not going back to the bank just yet. So that's really pleasing. Yeah. And that's my commercial reality. alongside the fact that I've also got this great amount of space now to explore all of my own art and the things I want to do and see and grow in this industry.
One of the points I'd love to point out there for people listening, because I have so many conversations with business owners and others that are talking about branding and personal branding, and they would see you as someone that really has developed a brand, and they know your name out there. And
some do, not all, really.
Not all, but like on the flip side, you come into a conversation fairly humble, saying, "Well, I'm not starting at ground zero, but you're sort of saying I really need to upskill. There's more I want to learn." And I would, because a lot of people say it's just too late. I've lost the war. I shouldn't get started. And what I guess wanted to point out is that you've got plenty of experience in media. Yet you yourself thinking what, I don't. It's all different. Things are there's plenty of skills to learn, and there's plenty of room for everyone to do things that they want, the way they want to do it, right? So
definitely,
I think that was something I'd really like to raise, because so many business owners really just like, well, that's not for me, or I can't do it, or it's I don't have the benefit of the broadcasting background. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. No, and I think that we all have somewhere. And something that we need to learn, so and room to grow somewhere. So you don't be afraid of it. It's normal, and I don't know. I just thoroughly believe in being yourself, being upfront and honest with people. And I hope in general it's come back to me in spades. There's plenty of people out there you can't trust. But at the end of the day, if you're upfront and you say, look, this is my skill set and I believe I can help you in this way, and in return I expect that you'll be able to teach me things along the way. That's just so important. Yeah.
So have you had any experiences where you've had some really negative feedback, like through the radio station or, that type of thing? And I guess it might be cool to hear a story around that and how you would to overcome that, because I feel like that's one of the biggest, challenge cards that people raise. Like, what if we start posting on our business page and someone does this, right? Yes. So I'm sure you've been hit probably many times, and maybe a little story how about and what you did about it, and I guess how it blew over and how it was resolved. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh my God, so many times. So if you're listening to this and you haven't any idea of my background at 96 FM, even in that one station, we went through 1, 2, 3, 4 lineup changes. 4.5, really. Like, there was so many swings and roundabouts. I had a very turbulent time at that radio station. And my mate Fitz, we both weathered the storm. I'd like to say that I've always called him the Teflon Kid, because he survived so many incidents and stayed on air. Nothing stuck to him. But, somehow I managed to get some of that too. And the two of us for 7 years there got through a lot. And so the things that changed, every time there'd be a change, and it was Fitz and I left there at the end of it, maybe with a new co-host, or we're down a co-host, or our show's being completely changed, or the radio station starts playing music that's completely off format, and people start to attack you like it was your personal fault. Yeah. Don't worry. Guy, right? You've got, we are the fall guy. And look, don't worry about it. Yeah. But you don't ignore it. Yeah. Don't delete it. Yeah. Acknowledge it and kill them with kindness. Yeah. I really thoroughly believe that all engagement is good engagement. Now, I know people go, oh, but I can't have a bad review and I can't. Why? Yeah. Well, who says you can't? Like, people know that there are many, many different people who will interact with your business. Yeah. And the same thing applies to the radio station. When you brand something that's narrow in focus in some way, in any way, shape or form, you're going to have outliers who don't like it. So it's kind of creepy when someone's got a clean sheet, right? We are still human. Like, not everyone can love everything that one person's doing or what group of people are doing. So and look, Facebook and Instagram, they all drive on engagement. Yeah. Google works. If you're interacting with people on your website, you're going to get more hits. Yeah. So I would rather see. Let's just insert brand, a supermarket brand, come back and explain something to a disgruntled customer, then go, oh, look, see how it's got 10 comments there on that post. I go read the comments and there are only 2. Yeah. The first thing I think is that 8 of those comments were disastrous, and that 80% of people who interact with their brand don't like what they see. So I would rather see a genuine response, and that's what Fitzy and I did. We got on personally. Yes, we had social media teams, depending on who was owning the radio station at the time.
Yep.
You know, they would come in and advise us on what to say, but it was genuinely just all kind, friendly. We met a lot of people in person. We ran strategies where the radio station would put us at a party and would invite listeners along, and we just spoke to everybody. And as a result, the outpouring since our show did get axed at the end of last year has been overwhelmingly supportive. And I still hear from listeners today, you know, working at my desk at home, a little Facebook message or something comes up and
we miss you.
Yeah, but if it's we miss you, great. Otherwise, they just want to know what you're doing now, because you don't have to be a radio host to develop that relationship with your audience. You know, you can be, you know, Matt, who's here at Visible. You know, you anybody who's running a business. My husband is running his chiropractic clinics. He's become, you know, the chiro who's talking to these people every single day, whether they're in his business or they're interacting with it via social media. And the bad reviews simply don't matter.
And that's where I think
experience them.
Yeah, like so I feel like a lot of people like to go, look, it's all or nothing. So that like either they just be themselves and no one knows who they are, kind of. Like obviously people know who they are in their marketplace and everything else anyway, but it's either that or they're like a rock star.
Yeah.
And like everyone must know you. You're all over, you know, all the media. But like even as a media person, like I'm sure, I mean, people would recognise you when they're out and about, but it's not like you're Will Smith walking down the road, right? And it's not like you have to like move to this crazy, because that's the other big pushback I get. Oh, it's like really, it's going to be really invasive into my time. And, you know, so because I think in the traditional media, unless you're one of the massive YouTubers, etc., then like most social is you're not, people don't really have a huge, I guess, just general population like knowledge of who they are, because everyone sits in their niches, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like in the more traditional space, like, you know, being on 96 FM, etc., you are a little bit more like, say, recognisable in our hometown Perth type thing. A little bit more.
Yeah.
But even not that to that level.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like the worst, like for years, if someone yelled out, Carmen, in the street, I'd still be like, oh, is that someone from school?
Yeah.
And I'd even asked a guy, oh, did we go to school together? He's like, no, I know you from the show. And he's like, that's the chiro. I'm like, yeah, that's the chiro. But what you share is up to you.
Yeah.
I've already evidenced that, you know, there's a big chunk of who I am that I haven't yet, you know, shared yet. You tailor to your audience. And like you say, they're niched, you're targeting a certain group of people and an industry. No one needs to know the name of your children. No one needs to know the name of your partner. They don't need to know anything about that personal side of your life if you don't want them to. Just brand it in relation to what you do and to who you want to speak to.
I keep sensing there's a lot that you want to bring out at some point
it's
soon,
coming,
isn't there?
You know,
there's a lot you want to talk about.
Sorry, Amplify your business. It might not all happen on this podcast. I don't know. Are you going to take it to the press? What's going to happen from here?
Press, you know, well, that's up to them.
It's
It's out there on the web. If they want to pick that up and do something with it, that's good for them.
There's other stuff, but it's nets.
No, it's all good. I'm not
necessary.
saying now. I'm just saying I feel like you're preparing yourself and getting used to the fact that you want to start sharing a few things.
Yeah,
so
getting
that's
my
really
own
cool.
ducks in a row behind the scenes.
Yeah, awesome. So have you I was going to ask the question, what's the best advice you ever received? But have you had mentors that have helped you through sort of as you've gone through the broadcasting phases, and has that been really important to you? And or like, what's the best advice they've given you?
Yeah, so important. Yeah. I think that I say that a lot. I've learnt on my crutch during this interview. I think that. Early on, I met the man I called the day that we found out that our contracts weren't being renewed at 96. I called a guy called Grant, and he's in Victoria, and he was my co-host of my brekkie show in country Victoria that I did on my way up through the ranks. You go to your country time. We did about 18 months together on air, but then I stayed in that company for a long time, and he went on to a management route, and always had been that person who'd been in it a bit longer than me, 10 to 15 years, and even he says, like, wow, I'm so relieved, like surprised that you still call me with things like this. And I said, yeah, well, you've been through it all. You sort of know why I'm here.
Yeah.
So those people are completely valuable. And his advice to me had always been of that very nature, to reskill and to understand and to not be left behind because all industries change rapidly. He was a very early adopter. You know, he's the sort of guy who had an iPod. I know they called it, you know, he had an iPod. He had an iPod, right? You know, when they had the wheel on them, like he had the one before anybody had one, you know. So it's sort of personality type that taught me to adopt technology, to get amongst it, to understand. I you know, working with him, we won industry awards and took ourselves off to radio conferences and learnt about the industry, and so we were able to anticipate a few things. So I think that's where I learnt that advice, stay ahead of the curve. He now manages, you know, he's off air and he does the entire digital marketing strategy and for an entire radio network in regional Victoria. And this is big dollars when you get into that area. So that was a good thing. Other radio mentors, he's probably been the key one, but then once I probably got to the city sort of world, my first program director, who used to be known in public sphere as the Ninja, Brad McNally, has been incredibly supportive of my career, and I still go out for tea and bickies with him, his wife, quite often.
Cool.
Yeah.
Going back to the first one, I think that's a really interesting point, because getting involved in the technology, whatever's coming out or whatever's really current, because we're often operating behind what's current. It's interesting because it's just such a major point of fear.
Yeah.
I think that's what really drives people, is that fear of change. It's when you get your hands on that new iPod or whatever that is, you really quickly realise that it's not that confronting to you. But so many people really want to hide from that change, and all it does is often is give you the opportunity to improve what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's knowledge, and it's
knowledge.
Power.
And
Isn't that cool? You know, for a long time, I panelled all of my own shows. I was the anchor and panel op, and then contribute some content as well. Or in the newsroom, I panelled and pulled together my entire news bulletin. And it wasn't until I came to the city again and came home that I became, you know, they said, oh, we don't need you to do that now. I left the newsroom, I just did my show. And my skill set sort of contracted, you know, turn up to work, just talk, just do the interaction with you and your co-host. Great. You know, I built one of my longest term friendships. You know, I've known Fitzy longer than I've known my husband. You know, we're super close. That's awesome. But meantime, he'd left the panel behind, I'd left the panel behind, and now I'm going back to, you know, work somewhere else I hadn't worked in 10 years, going, oh, God, I've got to learn to do this all over again.
What does the panel look like now?
That's right.
What's changed on the panel,
things
right?
Things have changed. Yeah. What is cool is that the technology that they adopt out in the country stations would go, oh, it's cheaper, yeah, we'll do it now. We'll take on the early technology. And the city radio stations would sit and wait until the technology had been tried and tested, and then they adopt it. So the stuff I was working on back, you know, almost 15 years ago in the bush in Victoria is now being used at the radio stations in Perth. So I can say that at least I have a familiarity to draw on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just that familiarity, right? As you say, it's just getting to know the new technology and not being fearful of it. But so I mean, when you're not producing, creating content, being involved in content, like, what do you listen to? What do you do you consume?
I love podcasts. I am a podcast listener. I've been listening to This American Life and Serial, and probably first fell in love with it the very, very, in the podcast world, a really obvious way. It was through the amazing, what was the one about the guy who's the clockmaker? Now made by Serial and This American Life. It's gone. First thing I've forgotten today. Anyway, I heard that amazing podcast.
We'll edit that in.
We'll edit that in. No, we won't. We won't do that. We'll put it in the comments of the podcast somewhere when I look at it later on social media and go, oh, it was called this. It was amazing. S-Town. Yeah. There we go. S-Town. S-Town made me fall in love with produced, packaged, TV-level production in a podcast and audio world. And we're doing some of it in commercial radio at the minute. It's very, very resource driven. It's not necessarily the payoff for it, but there's room to do so much more cool stuff. You know, we could be listening to go back to radio plays and radio serials. We could be listening to stuff that makes us want to binge listen.
That's a good point. There isn't a lot of content out there. I mean, apart from if you really get into someone or a particular podcast that you've never discovered before, like binge listening. Like we binge watch TV. We love the Netflix and Stan type formats where they drop entire seasons down.
Yeah.
We love audio too. Like it could be possible in that space.
It can. I think it's the next thing.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's coming. I'd love to be part of the company that is going to do that. You know, look, every major commercial network has adopted a podcast company and they're working on their content. Some of it's like, the chit chat, and it's great and it's really informative, and it's when you're in a learning space. But when I just want to be entertained and I'm driving for a long time or whatever it might be, I think we're going to see produced shows land on audio formats, and we'll download them on our phone. It's going to be easy to download than downloading an entire TV show.
Yeah.
It'll take no time. It's there, and we can stream it on 5G when it comes out.
Still do something else.
That's it. You can be bathing your kids. You can be cleaning the house. My mates at home with kids who are working from home, they love podcasts. They often say to me, "Gee, I wish that news.com had an audio service that I could listen to, because I don't have time to sit down and read things on my phone
They
anymore."
actually should.
They should.
They should already have it in place.
Do they?
Should
I
have
don't
the Google
know.
HomePod. No, I don't know.
It should be reading, it's like radio for the blind and newspapers for the blind and all that sort of thing that we've had for years. It should be being read to us.
I mean, with Google Home, Amazon Alexa, like these things are starting to come, and we'll be able to get our briefings daily and, and find them if it's news we want to listen to, or, you could have your own little snippet every morning that people could listen to and wake up to, and that could be your own show. Like that could be the extent, rather than the 3-hour format in the morning that
For the salespeople, it's okay. You can sell all those bits. I can hear the sales. This is it's all those years in commercial radio. Everything I do now, I hear, what would the salespeople say about that? And I can always hear them screaming in the background, we can sell it. Don't worry. It's fine. They really worry about their bottom line a lot.
Well, it is important, but then again, it's the art versus the science, right? And without good art, there's no science.
There's no money that's going to
make up for it. There's just no money that's making up for it.
Drive me as quite the entrepreneur, content. But I hear this coming from you. It's got to be good content.
It's got to be good, or as best you can produce anyway, as in my case. But that's
it's got information in it.
That's the game. Well, the game really does have the art component. It's just that we really find that hard to measure. We really struggle to pin how and why against a good piece of content versus not so good piece of content, because there's always other variables at play at the same time.
And they keep changing too.
And they change.
And that brings back this being aware of how the industry changes.
Yeah.
It changes so quickly, and that is something else that I'm having trouble keeping up with. But you just got to do it.
All right. We're going to finish off with a few little rapid questions, but do you read much?
Not enough.
Okay. If you had to take one book into solitary confinement for a year, what would it be?
This is too hard. It's like choosing one book.
One book that just means something to you. If you were stuck with nothing else and you just needed to take that with you and it would hold you together, it would entertain you, whatever it might be, what would it... It's really hard for an audio person, right? But what would that book be?
At the minute, it's probably Medical Medium. It's what I'm reading now, and it's changing my life in a health and nutrition sense.
Okay. Medical Medium.
Medical Medium.
Okay.
Look it up.
I will check it out. We'll put an affiliate link in the...
that's right. And it will sustain me, because he tells you all about eating fruit and vegetables. I'll be like, wow, well, lucky I'm on a desert island. Is that where we were going?
Solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. Oh,
you may or may not have committed a crime. Like, who knows? It's a fairly open-ended,
How am I getting this book in there? I'm going to have hope.
Smuggle it in the lime water bottle.
That's where it would go.
It might be a lime
That's where it would go. Okay.
Okay. What's your favourite Disney or cartoon character?
Aladdin. Because it was cute. Definitely.
Because Aladdin's cute?
Yeah, he was cute. I was, very, very conflicted feelings watching a cartoon as a young woman, thinking, wow, he's a really good-looking cartoon.
Okay.
You can read into that what you like.
Well, sometimes people like to pick their heroine or hero, other things, but you liked Aladdin, he was cute. I guess it came out at the right time.
Yeah, it did. I think I was just, I think I was early teens, a tween, highly impressionable and marketed to effectively.
Yeah, perfect. Well done, Disney.
Yeah.
They're not very good at that, are they? not at all. What's one weird app or a cool app that you've got on your on your home screen or on your phone that people might not know about?
Oh, I'm going to have to look at my phone. Hang on. Let me see. I only just updated it because I got the 10 thingy. I don't know. Cool. I don't use anything cool. I have no time for fun. need to have more.
interesting, something that saves you some time.
Yeah, this scannable one. What's it called?
Scannable.
Is it called Scannable?
Yeah, through Evernote.
That's been good. Evernote and Scannable. It's pretty good. I'm going through this decluttering phase at home right now, and I am just chucking out stuff. So much stuff is left in my home office, and I could not be happier. All the business cards that people spend so much money getting printed out, and I just got printed out, by the way, so I'll just hand you one of those now, and so that you can potentially Evernote it and throw it away.
I will Evernote it.
Some for your
but
staff
that's
to
great.
Evernote
Thank you.
as well.
Yeah, a couple of cards.
But yeah, Evernote's been good for that, and scanning, documents, all your, stuff from super and banks and all that stuff.
I think one thing that gets neglected sometimes is the organisation. Like the organisation of your stuff like that is, in my view as well, really allows the art.
Yeah.
Because if you've got, like some people work in mess, fair enough.
No,
but if you're organised and you've got things out of the way, you can actually like lend your mind to create rather than be like constantly worrying about this and that and stuff
Couldn't
going
agree
on.
more.
And it's super important.
Honestly, on the weekend, my husband decided to go out on the boat and get crayfish at Rottnest,
Nice.
and which is definitely one of my favourite pastimes. If I can be dragged along to do that, I will. But for one of the first times ever, I just said, no, I just have to stay here
and push this paper
clear
around.
stuff, because I just felt like we were just drowning in stuff. And if I wait and wait and wait, I don't think the day is going to come where he cares about the stuff. I've said, there's all of your bits of papers here. Are they needed? Because I feel like you haven't looked at them in 5 years, and he has given me carte blanche to just throw them out.
Get rid of it.
So it's the best feeling.
It's a good feeling getting rid of stuff, isn't it?
And I've just been feeling so good today and done so much work behind the desk. That's why I'm sounding croaky today too, because I've just been like, do heaps of work and not think about water or anything. But I've been able to work and think clearly because I got rid of the stuff.
I love it. It's good.
So important.
All right. The final question that I always ask is, what's the one thing that you would say to people listening that they could or should do now, today, to sort of amplify their business, make a change?
I would say have a crack at making some original content that comes from you. It can surprise you. Just do a little brainstorm and think about all the things that you could share from your knowledge bank with other people. And don't worry if it's something that you would normally sell.
Yeah.
It's okay. If people like what you have, they will come back and pay you for more at some other stage. But this is just about saying, hey, world, I'm here. Here's a piece of information that I have. That's been my learning in the last 6 months, and I think you should not hold back. Just get out there and give it a go.
I love it. It's good. Look, I could be saying the same thing myself.
I know,
So
look, it sounds like I've just learnt stuff from you. It's not all your stuff. There's many of my independent thoughts.
It's been really good chatting with you, because as I said, I don't necessarily talk to a lot of people from the more traditional media side, and I found that we actually thinking very alike in the approach and where things are going, from an innovation standpoint, and sort of, I guess, how things are merging more together, because they are. Traditional media has been merging for a long time. I just think there's a lot more like fluidity and flexibility on sort of my side of the fence, so to speak, and it's because we haven't been rigidly trained on the other side, which is what happens in more mature markets. It's just it is what it is.
It is, and that's what's been holding me back from doing as much as I would like to do. As now that I'm on my own. So I've learnt from you that I can just go for it, and I'll pass that information on to other people who are setting up businesses or have got their own business and they've been running in that very kind of rigid traditional paradigm for a long time. To have a crack.
Awesome. Carmen, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Really appreciate you coming. And I guess if anyone can't figure out where to find you or what to do, what's your handles on the socials, and what's what else is exciting? I mean, you mentioned just briefly about this project you're working on. Where can they find you, and where can they find about what you're working on?
My Instagram is at Carmen Brady, if that's how you like to play it. But really, most of my stuff is around carmenbraidwood.com.au.
Okay.
That's my website. Check me out on Facebook. I have a page. It's Carmen Braidwood. And to people who don't know how to spell that, it's lots of little words. Carmen braid, as in the hair, and then wood. And I'll let your imagination do the talking for the rest of that. But that's how you find me. I get around on Twitter a bit too. And when big things happen, I will share them on the blog. The blog tends to go quite well when I put that out through my social media.
And there's an email that you can sign up for the blog?
Not yet. Do that.
Okay. Before this actually goes live, so Carmen just said that by the time this goes live, there'll be a sign up available.
There'll be a sign up for the blog.
But like that'd be a great place for obviously you've got some interesting projects and stuff coming out. We've talked a little bit about it today, but that'd be a great place for people to be able to sign up and find out what's going on, because it sounds like you've got a lot of active fans that are looking forward to hearing about where you're at. And what you're doing.
That's very good learning. Yes, I do need to do things like that. Like I said, we're just all going to meet in the middle. Those of us stuck in the traditional space and the ones who are adopting this new digital technology, meet in the middle.
That's all right. Look, we're no different. Like we're just like the mechanics that have the cars with oil leaks. There's always there's always something out there, right? That you haven't. We'll do it for clients. We'll often have a similar situation going. So hey, this is broken, and you're like,
so true.
Fist palm on the.
I've spent the whole week lecturing my husband about getting an email out about his new clinic that I've prepared for him. We haven't done the email. And yet I don't have an email sign up on my own website. This is going to go over very well at dinner time. Thanks, Matt.
No worries. Look, thanks so much for coming on the show. I hope everyone enjoyed listening to a different perspective, and I was very excited for this interview, and I hope everyone else, you all have enjoyed it as much as I have. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, Matt Hanham here, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode of the Amplify Your Business podcast. I hope you got some awesome value out of the experience, and I'd love to hear your comments below, or if you want to share it with your friends, that'd be great too.